Okay, so TailwindCSS, for those of you who don't know, so we kind of like three ways to do CSS, right? We've had these Bootstrap utility classes, styled components, and obviously like CSS files or Sass files. And the Bootstrap classes, utility classes in general, are really nice to use, but Tailwind is kind of like a more industry standard of that. So we swapped out all those Bootstrap classes for Tailwind, and it just provides it's better documentation, way more robust, way more options, and theoretically you could do like pretty much 99.99% of all your CSS just using Tailwind. Here's kind of what utility classes kind of look like. So here's a little component over here on the left to style this with CSS files. It would look like the right, where we have this HTML structure and then class names, and then our CSS file would look like this. With Tailwind, instead of doing a class with a bunch of options per class, we can just put all those options almost like inline styling, except using shortcut classes. And so in Tailwind, it would just look like this. So you notice here, there's for the top div, there's display flex. Well, now we can just write flex right here, and that does the display flex. For max width 24 rems, we can do max-w small, or SM, which equals 24 rems. So kind of each attribute in CSS has a shortcut class name, and we've turned on a config that adds important at the end for all these, which is what Bootstrap was doing before, and we needed to do that so we didn't have to go and change like a ton of stuff. Yeah, so this looks like a lot cleaner. What's nice about this is you can still see the HTML elements that are being used, which gives you a lot of context, and you don't have to wonder if it's a component and you're like, if there's any logic. You just know, oh, this is just HTML, and just glancing at these classes, once you become familiar with them, and already you can just like glance at this and see pretty quickly exactly what's going on with these styles. If you're repeating a lot of styles, like for buttons, obviously you want all your buttons to look the same, and so you'd have to have like 12 or 15 different classes, and you'd be doing that every single time. That's ridiculous. That's why we make components. So when we're repeating these groups a lot, we just make that into a component. That's why we have the UI kit. So the UI kit is still a very powerful thing and a very good thing to have. Okay, now I'm going to go through some of these so you become familiar with what they are, so you can start using them and so you can start seeing them. I'm just going to cover like the most popular ones. You should go to their documentation is really good. This is what their documentation looks like. Like on the left here, there's so there's like Flexbox and Grid, and you can look at all these, and over here it shows every single option you can use on each of these different settings. So I'll show you the documentation a little bit later, but I'm just going to cover like the most popular features, and just feel free to chime in when I know you've been doing this a lot. So the first kind of section are like display, common things, right? It's just going to be anything that's display. It just drops the word display. So display flex becomes just flex would turn into display flex, block turns into display block. The only exception is display none. It's not none because that's like too vague, so it's actually the word hidden. And now you're like, well, what about visibility hidden? That class name is invisible, if you're wondering about that. But I rarely write that one, so display is pretty simple. What about Flexbox and Grid? Adding more of those. These are some really common ones. Flex call is the same thing as flex direction column. Flex wrap is flex wrap. Justify content is just the word justify and the value. So justify center, justify between. They just kind of make them short. You're not going to remember these, that's fine. I also made a document in Notion that shows these most popular options. So you can go to the official documentation site, which is great, or just Google it and you'll get it immediately because it's this framework is so popular. But if you want to just like look at all the most common ones, I do have a document. And it also shows the migration between, like the most common changes between Bootstrap and Tailwind. So you can look at that too to be like, oh, okay, now I know just instead of deflex, it's flex. we'll just go to the next one. So spacing, this is the same as Bootstrap if you're familiar, except for one caveat. The units, the unit at the end. So with spacing, we can just start, it starts with an M or a P, and M is for margin, P is for padding. And then I thought I did spacing twice. Whoops. This is the better spacing one. So it takes, there's like three. I know. I messed up. I didn't do sizing now. I didn't realize I did spacing twice and didn't do sizing at all. So for spacing, it's like kind of three pieces. You have an M or a P as the first character, and that means you're doing margin or padding. And then you have optional direction. So if you don't do anything for the second one, it's just going to do margin or padding on all four sides. But you can do X, which does left and right. You can do Y, which does top and bottom, just top and bottom. Or you can do TRBL for just top, right, or just bottom, or just left. So here's some examples down here. So M4 would be, and then at the end, there's a digit for a unit. And in Tailwind, it's nice because it's in units, it's in increments of a quarter rem. And a rem is root E. I don't know, what does EM stand for? Emphasis, maybe? It's whatever the font size is of the project, is what R is. Oh yeah, it's the letter M. That's right. I knew that. That's right. So the space of an M happens to be the same size as its like vertical size, maybe. I don't know. But so like REM is the root size of an M character, which is 16 pixels, which is really common across the internet and is on our website as well. So REM is 16 pixels unless we changed that someday. But right now it's 16 pixels is one REM. And every digit is a quarter of that. So you can do the math. One REM is 16. Oh yeah, so M4 would be a margin of one REM or 16 pixels all the way around. MX2 is padding left and right. So you have padding left and padding right. And 2 is 0.5 REM. So this is going to have left and right padding of 8 pixels. This is MB0 would convert to margin bottom of just 0. M4 would convert to margin 1 REM, which is 16 pixels. So it's just in 4. So you could do, if you wanted margin top 100 pixels, 100 divided by 16 times 4. I don't know. You have to do 100 divided by 4. 25. 25? So it's MT-25. And there you go.
1 pixel.
If you want 1 pixel, it's actually M-PX. They do have that option for 1 pixel since that's common. Then you can't do it. Actually, you can always do anything. I didn't show this, but you can always do dash, and then you can do brackets and type in whatever pixel you want. And that is like a direct. First, you can get exact, just a number. Do you have to have the PX?
Yeah.
You'd have the PX. So you do brackets 37 PX, and that would be 37 pixels.
Base 10 numbers or hexadecimal?
Yeah, all of them. Radii, actually radii.
You should
Rads.
figure out how to do it and then do a presentation.
Yeah. So apparently I did not do sizing. I did spacing twice. Sizing is just like this, sort of, except for width, like you can do W. For max width is max-W. For min width is min-W. Same thing for height. And then if you want pixels, you use these numbers, and it's the same units. If you want percentages, you do ratios. So if you want 25%, you do 1/4. Actually, in my document, I do have an example of this, so I'll show you that. Sizing, there you go. So W-10 is 40 pixels, or 2.5 REM. Max-H-1/2 is max height 50%. 100%, since 1/1 is kind of funny looking, so it's W-full. So if you want width 100% or max width 100% or height 100%, it's going to be like W-full. And the ratios, you can do anything over 2. Okay, not anything, but any anything less than like 100%. You can do any integer over 2, that's less than 2, any integer over 4. You can do it in fifths. You can do it in sixths. You cannot do tenths. Twelfths and sixteenths, I think, are your options for percentages there. You can check the documentation for all the options. It gives every option. That sizing. Typography. Typography is cool. Most typography starts with the keyword text. And for like, these are the common ones, size and colors, right? So you can do, for size, size are in like, they're not consistent increments, but they're in basically 2 pixel increments. But you have like size dash extra small, XS for extra small, SM for small, MD for medium, LG for large, 2XL, 3XL, 4XL, 5XL, 6XL. I think you can go to like 12XL or something. And it usually increases it by 2 pixels until you start getting to the bigger numbers.
How does that one play with our existing UI kit specifically?
So that's another good point. You should just use the typography component. Yeah, just use the typography component. For colors, colors are cool. In fact, I'm just going to talk about colors first, and then we'll go back to that. So all the colors in our neighbor theme are available. If you've seen our palette, it's kind of like Google Palette. You have, take every color of the rainbow, and then there's like 10 breakdowns of each color. So you have red 10, red 20, red 30, or 40, all the way up to red 100. Same thing with gray, blue, purple. What's great now is you still have these as SAS variables, so you can use them in your SAS files, but now they can just be attached at the end of certain classes. So you can do text dash blue 50, and now your text is blue. You can do BG, or that this is the same thing as color, blue 50. BG dash blue 50 is the same thing as doing background color is blue 50. Border blue 50 is the same thing as doing border color is blue 50. Placeholder if you want, or divider. So adding colors is really easy. So you currently have all the neighbor theme colors. You also have the word current for current color, transparent, black, and white. And then also we added some like domain. We'd like to maybe build this theme out a little bigger, but you can also do error to get like, I think it's equals red 70. It's just our like general red color for error. So you can do text dash error or BG dash error to get that error color. And with text, a lot of times maybe like the text is the wrong color because some parent class is overwriting it. And so you're like, oh, I just want our black text. Well, what is that black text? You know, is it gray 90? Is it pure black? What is it? Well, you can just do text primary, and it's going to grab our primary text color across the whole site. You can also do text secondary for a little bit lighter. Text disabled, if you ever need to have like the disabled text color, and text link grabs that blue color. So that's colors. Oh yeah, so here it is for text. You can do text red 70 if you want a specific color. You can do text primary, which is just as color black. Text disabled, which is gray 50. Text link, which is blue 70. Okay, now I'm going to talk about some cool features that you can do too. One is breakpoints. So the question is, how do you do media queries? You can't do media queries. Oh yes, you can. So with Bootstrap, you had like SM and MD and large XL. And we have those same things here, but instead of sticking them in Bootstrap, we stuck them in the middle of the class. So it was like text dash small dash big or something. Now this is just a prefix. So for example, down here, if I wanted to add the display flex to a div that's only when it's on medium-sized screens or higher, then I just do MD:flex. And what this does is it makes this CSS. It's going to do that media, min width. This is our medium breakpoint. We have, if you want to know what the breakpoints are, the options are, you can look at our Tailwind config, or there's a bunch. It's in a bunch of places in our code. And then it's going to say display flex just at this breakpoint. Keep in mind, this is built off the mobile first in mind, which means if you don't have a prefix, that's the class for all sizes. When you add a prefix, that's going to be at that size and up. So for example, here, what this class does is it applies display flex to all screen sizes. Then if the screen becomes medium size or larger, it applies display block. Then when it becomes to a screen size of large or larger, it goes back to flex. That's what this is doing right here. And so you can have as many of these as you want and keep changing it at every breakpoint. Does that make sense? How that works? Keep in mind, if you do SM:block, that doesn't mean on mobile phones be block. That means at our small breakpoint and higher. And our small breakpoint right now is like 600 pixels. So that means that's not a phone. That's like a landscape phone or something. If you want it on phones, like starting with mobile first, there's no prefix. You just do the regular one.
Do those breakpoints match the existing system?
They do. I just copied them from our existing. And Dan and I actually want to meet up and talk about what those breakpoints are and if we can come up with what they should be. Yeah. Because those were decided like maybe a long time ago. And I'm not sure about them anymore. Okay. Okay, now down. Oh, great. We get media queries. But what about hover? Focus. How do we do that? Same thing. Pretty cool. I put these colons in the beginning and they go on the end. Whoops. So same thing. You have hover, focus, after, before, focus within, all your normal pseudo elements. And it's the same thing. It's a prefix. So you can do hover, BG blue 70. This converts to, when this element is hovered, make the background blue 70. So yes, your class names might start getting really long if you put all of this in a class name. But if it's really long, we probably have a component for that anyway. But like most of the time when I am adding classes, I'm adding class attributes, I'm adding 2 or 3, right? Like maybe flex and justify center. So this is really handy for those small ones.
They have transitions or transforms.
They do, and they have filter. Yeah, they have every CSS attribute. Like I'm pretty much sure every. I didn't give examples here, but in the docs you can find them. It's almost every single attribute there is a shortcut for in Tailwind.
Do we have them all included by default, or do we have to start with just what we use? We're adding them as we go.
They're all included. The only thing that's not included is. Nothing's not included. Everything's included. I did not include Tailwind's CSS reset file because it was messing some stuff up. So that's not in right now. But I would love to get a reset file in there eventually.
So it should be noted, like, with the inclusion. Are you going to talk about the JIT? Or?
No, I'm not. Oh, I'm going to say we could not get on Tailwind 3.
Oh,
we were on Tailwind 2.
Okay.
Because there were dependency issues. Hazley and I spent 7 hours trying to get the dependencies to work out, and we ended up on version 2.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, I don't know much about it, but.
Are we doing the post, what's it called?
Post CSS v7 as well.
Well, to clear out the unused classes?
Oh, I assume that's happening. Do I have to do something for that?
We might want to.
Okay.
I'll look at that with you.
Perfect.
Well, I'll just mention this though.
Yeah.
So basically, there's a way with post CSS, you can clear out any classes that aren't being used, so that you're minifying your style sheet as much as possible.
Yeah.
But once we can get to Tailwind 3, they have what's called just-in-time, or the JIT compiler, and what it does is it only includes those from the start, and so it's watching all your files to see what classes are being used, and then anytime you add a new class, then it adds it into the style sheet, and so you get kind of all the performance benefits of just having the smaller list of classes while also being able to use literally anything. So.
Okay, I only have 2 slides left. Conditions. So conditions, what about when props change? How do I add different conditions and states and stuff with CSS? Well, we already have that. We're already using it a lot with this in our project. This library called class names, and here I'm just importing it as CX. It's something I saw people doing it online, and I liked it because it's short. So this is a function, and if you haven't seen this is in a lot of our components already, but it lets you do smart things like with CSS. You can just pass in a bunch of class names. It'll merge them all together. And then what's really cool is you can pass in an object. And you have the class name as the key. And then you have a Boolean as the value. And it will only apply the class names of the key if the Boolean is true. So this is how we can logically add or remove classes. And what I love about this too is when you're looking at your file in inspect, you see it's like you don't have like these magic attributes that when you look at inspect, like it's just they're sometimes they're there and sometimes they're different. I'm not sure what's happening when they're changing or why they're changing. And this just makes it a little clearer. I'm trying to think actually what this looks like in inspect when you do this. I guess it would just add to the list of class names. But you can see those class names add on and drop off as your state changed. Yeah, so I love this class names library. Okay, last slide. We're on V2, we're not on V3. The classes are almost identical. There's a couple differences. You probably won't come across them. It's like in some obscure areas. But when you look up docs, maybe look up the version 2 docs. But even if you look up version 3, it's like 98% the same. Get the VS Code extension. I didn't write the name of it here, but get it. And IntelliSense. It's called Tailwind IntelliSense, something like that. It does sweet things. Look at this. When you type, so first of all, as you type these classes, it's IntelliSense and it tells you all your possible options. So it's really cool. If you can't quite remember, but you know it's text, just type in text and then it'll show you what's available. So you know that like you're not just making one up. So that's awesome, IntelliSense. Also, it adds these colors here. So you know that it's a valid color and you know what that color actually is. And so that's some really cool things with the extension. So get the extension to help yourself. And that's it. That's Talwin. Any questions?
I think so.